Hello, welcome to Artist Magic. I'm your host, Megan Kuhar. I want to start today with a quote from the one and only Sir Paul McCartney. He did an interview with Guitar World in October 1997, and I just really love this whole concept, and I want to base this episode on this quote, essentially. So here's how it went. The person interviewing Paul asked him, "What's next for you?" And this was back in 1997, so he's done a lot since then. Let's just put that into perspective. But he just asked, "What's next for you?" And here's what Sir Paul says in response. He says, "I don't know. Something will happen. I've told this story before, but once in the early days of the Beatles, we broke down on the motorway going back to Liverpool. One of us said, 'What are we going to do now?' And another said, 'Well, something will happen.' Immediately, a lorry came up and said, 'Want to lift, lads?' We all piled in. I'm a great believer in something will happen. You can look at it two ways. It's either true or you're totally naive. We always used to say, something will happen. Something always did happen." Something will happen. That's where we're picking up today's episode. So you'll, just FYI, you will get the most out of this episode if you listen to it while you are in a quiet space free from distractions, because we're going to do a little bit of breathing work and a little bit of grounding today. By the way, before I start, if you have not watched Get Back, you absolutely need to. It's on Disney Plus. No, they're not paying me to say this. I wish they were, because it's one of my favorite things I've ever seen in the past 2 decades. And it just changed everything for me. It totally shifted just how I felt about the Beatles, which I already felt amazing about them. But I just can't. I want to do so much more commentary on that show, on that docuseries, but I'll just leave it at that. You have to watch Get Back if you haven't watched it yet, especially if you're a musician. All right. So today's episode, we are starting with this concept of something will happen. So I want to speak to you if you feel like you're in a cycle of perfecting or tweaking, or even a cycle of imposter syndrome. So if that's you, or even if you think that may be you but you're not sure, then I want you to close your eyes if it's safe where you are right now. And let's take a few grounding breaths together. Just imagine that your feet are connected to the earth, that there are roots growing from the arches of your feet, plummeting down into the ground through the core of the earth. That you are here. It is safe. I'm with you. You're with me. And I see you. And I feel you. And I was you. But repeat after me. Messy is magical. Messy is magical. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I want to start by asking you this. What is the outcome that you desire? Take some time to be in silence. Pause this if you need to. Connect to your intuition. Connect to your body. And allow the answer to come to you. What is the outcome you desire? Now, what would happen if you received that outcome? What would your life be like? How would you feel? What would you be thinking? What would you be doing every day? What would be different? What would be the same? Okay, now what would happen if you didn't receive this outcome? What would you be missing? What would you have? What would your life be like? What would you be thinking? What would you be feeling? If you cannot answer those 3 questions for yourself now, remind yourself to come back to this episode and do it later, because those 3 questions are like the 3 keys to taking action. What is the outcome you desire? What would happen if you received this outcome? And what would happen if you didn't receive this outcome? If you are not already painting a picture of those answers for yourself, and you feel like you're stuck in this cycle of, imposter syndrome or perfecting or tweaking, then most likely you are stuck in the cycle because you don't actually know what you want, or you haven't quite put your finger on it. And your body doesn't respond to, uncertainty. It just sees that as danger. And so when you go through this cycle of like constantly tweaking, constantly perfecting, constantly comparing yourself, it's going to create like a cycle of anxiety in your body. So I totally get it. I mean, Instagram is full of people who show you their best side. You see these people on like TikTok, and it seems so easy to get millions of likes on something or millions of followers. But the truth is that usually that does not happen like immediately overnight. Even if it does happen with one post and that post goes viral, 100% that person was trying other things, whether it was social media or not social media related, for a long time before they got something that worked. So it's easy to get caught up in comparing your output to somebody else's. So when you think about like launching your thing now, or getting a band together, or pitching your show, or auditioning, or trying something new, or starting a Patreon, what comes up for you? How do you feel? Think about that. Put a feeling to that question, an emotion. Do you feel maybe insecure or inadequate, stuck, nervous? There's all sorts of things you could be filling in there, and I don't want to lead you to one. I want you to like think of it yourself. So again, this episode, you are welcome to pause and answer these questions. So how do you feel? What comes up for you when you think about like taking that action step that you're putting off? Now, once you figure out what that feeling is, if that's the feeling that you are currently operating from, what kind of action are you really taking? Right? So if you are operating from a sense of inadequacy, the action that you're probably taking is like either not posting at all because you don't think it's good enough, or like trying everything different all the time and like not sticking with one thing to let it see through, trying a trend, doing something different, trying this, trying that, and then being really frustrated when it doesn't suddenly blow up and you don't suddenly get a bunch of attention for it. Because it just is like your confirmation bias of your subconscious is like, I don't feel adequate. I feel like I'm not worthy. I feel like I'm not enough. Oh, look, this post didn't work. It must be true, right? So at this point, a lot of coaches will step in and try to sell you on their formula. I have been there. I tried doing that, and it was earnest. I wasn't trying to like dupe people, right? But I tried doing it, and I tried buying it too. I tried buying other coaches' formulas through courses or through free downloads, even if it wasn't paying money. I tried buying them, right? Or tried, doing what I thought they would think was successful. And I'll tell you what, it never works. It doesn't work. It won't work. Somebody else's formula will not work. Being sold to, furthermore, when you are in a moment of vulnerability, when you're triggered, when you're remembering trauma, either consciously or subconsciously, creates action that is seeped in all sorts of negative energy. And that's when you're being sold to do something. Like, hey, here's a formula that's going to help you grow your Instagram account. Hey, here's a formula that's going to finally get you those high ticket clients that you've been looking for. Here's a formula that's going to get you on a Spotify playlist. Here's like those types of things. If they're selling to you in your moment of vulnerability, then you buying it feels like, oh my gosh, I'm doing these things to like take steps towards my goal. But really, it can be really seeped in this underlying subconscious feeling of inadequacy or insecurity or unworthiness or whatever you feel. And so that is sort of going to like seep over everything you do. So if you're creating content out of fear or inadequacy or any of those, all of the above emotions that I mentioned, and maybe that one that you've been thinking of, you're probably doing things like copying trends, posting irregularly, which is hard to say, diving deep into Instagram wormholes, doing that comparison game, right? Complaining about the algorithm, hear that one a lot, etc. So, operating from that sense of insecurity or fear or negativity, even if you don't realize you're doing it, because it is probably subconscious, will create this whole cycle of like perfectionism and tweaking and comparison and all sorts of things. And sort of like putting the blame on things like that are intangible, like the algorithm, right? Or your audience, which is totally normal. And that's what happens when you operate from that place. So remember the words of Paul. If you're not sure what to do next, that's okay. Something will happen. So do something. Something will happen. Then something else will happen. Then something else will happen. It'll just keep happening for you. And as you go, you're going to start to uncover things and learn things about yourself, about your audience, about your method, all sorts of things. So this came up actually recently in an episode of Bluey, which if you're a parent out there and you don't know the show, get on it. If you're not a parent and you don't know the show, I still recommend it. It's a kid's show technically, but it's amazing. Again, Disney Plus, not being paid by them. Wish I was. So Bluey they were on a road trip and Bluey was complaining of boredom. This isn't quite what we're talking about here, but still, this is a similar situation. She was complaining about boredom, being bored, and her mom said, Bluey, sometimes you're gonna just be bored. Just be bored. Look around. Something always comes up. Look around. Something always comes up. Something will happen. Give yourself that moment of taking things in, whether it's like, looking at the world around you or looking at your room or taking a moment to reorganize or taking some time to do some breath work or going through hypnosis or doing all sorts of things that can really help you kind of be grounded in the moment, because something will come up. Something will happen. You'll get a little stroke of inspiration that will help you to take and make action steps that are maybe messy, but actually more aligned with what you want to do and how you want to express yourself. You will always get so much out of just taking action and making it messy. And I know I'm kind of treading a fine line here because I have heard a lot of coaches say things like, take messy action, or your negative energy is stopping you from success. Both of those things trigger me a little bit. So I want to kind of go through those because I think it's important to kind of set up the room here a little bit. I am not saying that, you're negative and you're never going to get successful if you're negative. Like 100% no. So let's dive into these two phrases. Take messy action. Messy action is one of those buzzwords that usually means do what I'm doing, even if you're not sure about it. Usually that's what it means when a coach says that. I have heard it so many times and it's usually not helpful because it doesn't actually tell you to take intuitive action. It usually is mostly talking about like, try this thing and see what happens. Or try this formula, or just go ahead and jump on TikTok and do it. Like, they're not actually fostering a sense of security in yourself and wholeness in yourself before you start taking action. And so taking that kind of messy action is not sustainable because it ends up becoming this cycle of, again, like putting something out there and thinking that you're like putting your whole heart into it and then not getting enough response or not getting the response you wanted and feeling terrible about yourself. So what we want to do is we want you to take action that's messy, but that comes from a sense of wholeness, not from like comparison. So there's a big difference there. And then that second quote, your negative energy is stopping you from success or something along those lines. That is something I was once told by a coach. It felt terrible and it sent me into a 3-year spiral. Still recuperating from it. It did not help me. When people tell you your energy is negative and people can sense it and that's not why they're buying from you, or that's not why, your energy is negative and that's why people don't engage with your posts or whatever it is. That is not helpful. Not only is that not helpful, it's triggering, it's harmful. Telling someone they're negative without helping them uncover what is coming up for them is unhelpful and straight up harmful again. When you just impose your sense about a person on them, instead of allowing them to uncover that for themselves or sharing space with them so that they can uncover that for themselves, you are inevitably going to send them into a lot of spiraling thoughts. Things like, how did I not know this about myself, but other people can see it? How do I stop being negative? I don't feel like I'm negative. What if I'm having a bad day? Does that mean I shouldn't be sharing something? I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Even worse than that, it can go really deep. It can cut really deep. So if you've been told before that, people aren't buying because you don't have the right energy, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry that was said to you. And I'm sorry that was offered to you without your consent and without you sort of uncovering that for yourself, because that is not how coaching should work. It doesn't matter if I think you're being negative. I'm going to help you to understand where your mind is and where your subconscious is about this specific topic, like posting. I'm going to help you understand that yourself. I'm not going to just put my assumption on you and tell you what I think, right? So here's my replacement for all of that. When you are writing a post or making a reel or whatever it is you're doing, starting a new TikTok, sit with your body for a moment and close your eyes and ask yourself, why am I making this? Truly, why are you making this? Why? If your body cringes, or your intuition tells you it's because you don't know what else to do, or other people are doing it, so it must be working, or this is something that's supposed to help with the algorithm, then you can help yourself get out of that now. You can help yourself get out of that now, because those thoughts are not helpful. What would be helpful would be to answer the 3 questions and then add one more. So the 3 questions again: what is the outcome you desire? What would happen if you received this outcome? What would happen if you didn't receive this outcome? And then adding a 4th one: what meaning are you making from not receiving this outcome right now? What meaning are you making from not receiving this outcome right now? That last one, it's important, because that's the feeling that you're probably carrying, which is causing you to feel triggered when you post on social media. Messy is magical. Just post the thing that feels the truest to you. Then something will happen, and allow those somethings to unfold. That is trusting your intuition. If you are looking for ways to help facilitate the space that you need to be able to shift those mindset patterns and those thought cycles that you're in, then I would recommend you check out Hypnosis. I have one right now as a free gift for my email subscribers. It's called Safe to Be Seen, and it's meant for you if you feel like you get triggered from the idea of posting on social media. So if this episode resonated with you, I would totally recommend heading to my website. The link is in the description of this podcast, and it's a free gift for you for subscribing to my email list. All right, I will see you next time.